Well, it was Visionathon last week, so we didn't get to catch up with them. So we're doubly excited to catch up with Brett Rahm from Focus on the Family Australia this week. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yay, yay,
Great to see you again, Brett. And we're going to talk about a bit of a difficult subject today, and that's in relation to estranged grandparents. And you were saying that this is something that you're hearing about more and more.
Yeah, unfortunately, due to the culture that we live in, many couples may choose divorce. And so the grandparents or the parents of the children, the adult children, may be left in the wake. And, anytime a relationship is damaged, there's a blast radius and it can have a ripple effect. And one of the ripple effects can be grandparents being estranged from access to their grandchildren. Now, we also acknowledge that there's sometimes that maybe the grandparents stepped over the mark. They pushed the boundary too much. They got too involved, and then there may be a situation where a relationship has been completely strained for whatever reason, and that can be a variety of reasons. And then there's a situation where you have no idea what you've done and you can't get an explanation.
Yeah.
And that can be very frustrating.
Yeah. And that would be the hardest in some respects, wouldn't it? Because when you've just been blindsided, one day you've got full access, the next day it's like everything's been cut off, and you don't know why and how to resolve that. It can be very challenging.
Yeah, and it may not be necessarily be both the parties, but it may be that there's a strong opinion, whether it's the daughter-in-law or the son-in-law has made that edict that you shall have nothing further to do with your parent. And therefore, they're going to have nothing to do with your grandchildren. And so it's not just the grandchildren being estranged, it's being estranged from your own children and not having that connection, that relationship. And that is heartbreaking. And we at Focus have received many phone calls or emails when this is the situation and they have no idea what to do. And they recognize they may have done some things wrong, but they've tried to fix it in their own strength. And unfortunately, in their own effort, it's caused more damage and more harm. And the wedge has got far bigger. And so we need to actually step back a little bit. And there are some strategies that I would highly recommend that, people do who have found themselves in this situation, and not to force it, but to own the part that you can own and do a sincere and wholehearted apology. And don't justify your behavior. Don't say, but, or with, I am sorry if you felt, and it's going to fall flat. And so we on our website have got a variety of different articles along this about, when your apology falls flat or the language of an apology, which is a fascinating thing about what other people hear, and how to give a good, wholehearted an apology.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's some good tips in there because, obviously there's no, easy one-size-fits-all answer to the issue, but the apology, I guess there are some good principles that you could apply to say, well, let's make sure that we're getting that part of it right, because that's, I guess, the bit that we can do, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And you have to own your own backyard, own that aspect that you can't force that other relationship to be reconciled. And maybe it's simply just, really owning that part of an apology. Things like, I was so wrong to say those things to you. And then don't overdo it, just to really keep it very simple. Don't bring back things that happened 5 or 10 years ago, but just see the here and now. For what I said, I was wrong, and I am really sorry. And I hope after time you'll forgive me. And then just like that. And then let that settle. Rather than say, okay, are we all friends now? I've said sorry.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work.
Time needs to happen sometimes.
Healer.
Yeah, so time, and just maybe slowly, if the doors are opening a little bit, you don't burst in with, the next meal or whatever. You just slowly but surely be waited to be seated at the table again, right?
And that's that opportunity to get back to the table, maybe what you're thinking and expecting, but go it slow. Have a very low expectation. It may never be the same. There'll be a scar, and that scar will fade over time. But at the same time, be civilized. And it doesn't mean you can be treated rudely or disrespectfully. But at the same time, you need to be able to share what you have. And it may be, people might send a text, for example, and they say, don't ever contact me ever again. maybe wait 6 months and then try again, for example. It doesn't mean it's forever, but because when people's emotions are heightened, they may say something or do something that they may regret. And so maybe giving that space, that time, you can't force it, as I said. But then with your grandchildren, for example, you can still show unconditional love. That might be sending them a card. It may be sending them an email. If they're on social media, maybe, send them a text. But if the parents remove themselves, it may get to a point where you actually just have to write those cards and never send them. Because when they get older, when they get a little bit to an age where they have a greater understanding, you'll be able to show them if the relationship is restored. You can say, hey, in those years that we weren't having in contact, we were always thinking about you. We were always praying for you. And here is the evidence.
Yeah.
Here's the cards. Here's the small gifts. You were always on our mind. And, it can do so much damage. So if this is your story, and I know there'll be many people, whether that's the children that have removed from the grandparents, the access to the grandparents, or for grandparents who have been removed from access of their grandchildren, I think it's time to actually put the olive branch. Now, I'm not saying that this is easy, and I'm not saying, and I'm not condoning if there's an abuse or mental health issues or addictions. They're bigger issues. But if they're just simply a relationship breakdown, we need to do each other the greatest gift is to forgive one another and move forward.
Absolutely. Well, there's some great tips here, and you did mention you've got articles on your website, so I'd encourage people to check those out from both sides, from the apology, from I guess that whole issue of estrangement. Is there one that you've got particularly in that side that people can hunt for on your website?
Yeah, there's one called Hope for Estranged Grandparents, and it's found on our website at families.org.au. And if you can't find what you're looking for, please contact us, and we'd be more than happy to send you in the right direction.
Yeah, that's right. You can always contact Brett and the team. Really important topic. And as you say, sadly, it's becoming more prevalent these days. So something that we need to be aware of, and I guess navigating through some of those seasons. So thanks again for your time, Brett.
I'll just leave you with one thing. Just leave one thing of encouragement. Kate and I have been in a situation where we had some strained relationships, and we tried to fix it because we were experts. We were the ones that knew how to do things. And the more we tried to do things, the more difficult it became. So we had to actually say, let go and let God. And we had to just continue to pray and ask for God to intervene, that he may be glorified. And then that relationship was completely restored. And we go, yay, God. It wasn't anything to do with us.
Yeah.
It was all God. And so I know it's easy to say, but this battle is fought on your knees.
Yeah, so true.
So good. Timely
Excellent.
reminder.
That's great. Well, thanks again for your time, mate. We'll look forward to chatting next week.
You're more than welcome. Bye-bye.